we must bring the one and only Arthur Falcone inside of the show. Goated name, by the way.
Goated name.
I think there was like a Batman villain at somewhere, like back in
Yeah.
the comics, who was a mob
Yeah.
boss that was fighting Batman, and so I maybe this is the real guy. I kind of doubt it, but
Yeah.
he is New York based. He has been growing and scaling brands to the moon for many years, and I think wants to help everybody quit wasting their meta ad spend. They are very good at that. We must bring him inside of the show. Everybody, welcome in here, the one and only Arthur Falcone. Get in here, Arthur. Get in here. Arthur, welcome
Hey
to
guys,
the
how are
show,
you?
brother. We appreciate you making the time to
Thank you.
join us, man.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Arthur, man, I'd love you to just back up the truck a little bit and, man, give us some context on you, what you guys do at Tandem Growth, and how you've gotten here today.
Yeah. So I started in e-commerce probably about 25 years or so ago, back when
Wow.
spreadsheets were
Wow.
limited to like 65,000 rows, and Google AdWords and Panama and all that was still a thing. So I've kind of been through it all. Um, I started my own ad agency back in 2018, and I sold that after about 4 years, and we were predominantly focused on meta ads. So I had my own team here in the city, and ever since then, I just kind of take on projects that look interesting.
Wow. I mean, that's unbelievable. You talked to me a little bit personally about, the fact that COVID was insane for you. Why was it so insane in the world of e-commerce? Why was it nuts?
God, and so back then I was about 2 years into the agency. My wife and I are both in e-commerce, and between us, we have 5 kids. So
Let's
we were
go.
essentially, yeah, we were sitting at home in New Jersey at the time, and when the whole order was released, it was just kind of haywire all over the place. Ad spend essentially stopped for like 80% of our clients.
Oof.
And in hindsight, that lasted for about 2 weeks, right? And after those 2 weeks are up, we kind of we went back into the reporting. We kind of figured out that like, listen, like MER is still incredibly strong. CPMs are way, way down. So we started testing the waters, and within the next 2 weeks, you figure out you couldn't spend enough money. And so the reason I mentioned the kids, both of us were in e-commerce. We were both handling client calls. We couldn't get enough bandwidth. You spend this whole time telling kids to get off devices, and now they're stealing your bandwidth that you need for client calls. So it's an interesting time.
Arthur,
That's incredible.
tell me at this point, I mean, having, sold an agency and now you're, in the life that you are, what makes a project interesting for you at this point?
Yeah, I kind of approach projects a little bit listen, is this a good product? Can I see myself using it? And also like the attorney general, right? Like they tend to not take on cases they know they can't, they know they have a lower chance of winning. And so when I look at projects, I think to myself, like, does this have a good place in the market? Is the founder the person that can really scale this project? Do they have a good head on their shoulders in terms of product design and fulfillment, manufacturing, et cetera? And can they stand aside to bring in expert guidance on the marketing side, right? I need them
Yeah.
focused on the product, and have me and whatever there is of my team focusing on the advertising and bringing the thing to market.
I'd love-
I really feel. Oh, go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would love to get a little bit tactical with that. I mean, you've been inside probably so many ad accounts at this point. I mean, you've been in e-commerce for 25 years. You've seen probably the whole rigmarole inside of ad accounts. If you're jumping into an ad account and a brand's CAC won't budge at all, what is that first question you're going to ask before you actually touch that ad account?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I'm incredibly realistic when it comes to auditing ad accounts and kind of getting back to them with, these are the things that I see opportunity, and this is like the places that I don't see opportunity. If I come into an ad account and the CAC isn't budging and they're not okay with the CAC, I kind of like, I try to changing the narrative to something that's like, if this is your current CAC and you've done all the low hanging fruit stuff, and the only thing that's left are the very, very difficult things like, a 6 month like whitelisting campaign, or, a tremendous amount of new, testing new ad creative, new audiences, et cetera, landing pages. If you've already done all the like low hanging fruit to the medium things, like that CAC is now your reality, right? So what are you going to do about it? Is this something that you can afford in meta ads, right? Because if it's not, then if you can't sustain that, then look at your retention strategy, right? Look at, are you doing everything that you need to be doing from, with recharge? Are you cutting out churn as much as you can? Are you advertising recharge? Are you advertising your subscription program as much as you can? Are you pushing lifetime value? For apparel brands, have you figured out those couple of SKUs that are your champions? Sure, the site has 300 SKUs, but only really 5 of them are truly bringing in new customers, right? So are they sticky enough? Are people returning those, and at what rates? So it's really like, if you're used to seeing a $40 CAC and you're now at $60, maybe that might just be your new reality, and changing to another Facebook ad agency or another consultant, or change, it may not make much of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the difficult reality that a lot of us have found ourselves in, especially, after meta changes and everything changes, post COVID era, et cetera, is that everything's more expensive. The days of 50-cent cost per click is well over. And I think, beyond like, hey, let's find more places where we can put dollars and hopefully get a more winsome return. The hard piece is exactly what you're underlining, is I've got to build a business that can afford, the natural CAC that I'm feeling on Meta or in other places. And that comes to retention. It might come to manufacturing, it might come to, new offers, et cetera. I totally agree with you. It's hard to grip and handle and face that reality. It may mean 8 months of product development. It may mean a number of tests in other areas.
Well, especially for like for an ad agency coming in that specifically specializes in meta ads, giving that answer to a potential prospect essentially means that you're turning down that prospect, right? You're essentially telling them that I can't do a better job than the guys that you've had before. What you really should be doing is focusing on landing pages, focusing on retention, all these other things. And so, like, the goals aren't aligned, right? So finding a great meta ads person may take you from 1 to 3, but once you get past 3, it's a completely different set of things to worry about.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about this RIDE framework that you've kind of coined? And I've never heard of this before. Could you go through this?
Sure. I put RIDE together as essentially the pathway to that I use just internally to get into like a steady rhythm with an account. And so essentially it's, we're analyzing what's currently there. We're trying to figure out what the pathway is to greater profitability or whatever the goals are in that account. We're creating a framework around, what are the like creative optimizations that we're going to need for this? What amount of creative do we think we're going to need out of the gate? And reporting back performance in a way that the founder actually understands. The main reason of implementing RIDE in general for us is so that I can essentially build around automation systems that can help us deliver on a better cadence and in a more kind of in a more helpful way back to the brands that we work with.
Yeah.
Arthur, it seems like, well, let me ask it this way. When you, when you guys are working with the brand, taking on a project, what's the team interface of that look like? The reason that I ask is that it seems like you guys have more of a model where they've got one person that they're dealing with, one person that's strategizing, one person that's implementing, et cetera, which is, it's different. It's unique. I think a lot of times people would find that more, they'd like it better. because the same person that they're talking with is the same person that's inside their account all day, every day, et cetera. Is this the case?
Yeah, very much so. And this isn't, if we're talking to like agency founders and to some extent to like e-commerce brand founders here, to help them figure out what agency works well for them. It really depends on what, as an agency, your goal is. If your goal is to scale to 150, 200 clients or whatever, and then sell based on your client book and people, people that you've hired, this won't work, right? But for me, just based on what I've seen with scaling my own agency and selling it years ago, brands desire and honestly deserve and need a point of contact on the agency side that knows what they're doing, right? That has been through it all, right? That isn't just an expert in the service that they're purchasing from the agency, but that like truly understands e-commerce. And I just having seen the other side of this, and I won't talk bad about agencies. There's good fits and there's bad fits, but I can't imagine a world where a brand would do well with like a junior account rep, right?
Yeah.
I feel, especially in the stage of brands that I generally work with, I feel like they need someone that they can kind of like trust, that they could go to with questions, that can help them, both in meta ads, but also help them figure out what are all of the things that make meta ads successful. And so it's on the POC.
When thinking about that, you are probably going through and seeing so many unbelievable problems for brands that are at a smaller scale and are also at a larger scale. So brands that are doing maybe $1 million and then brands that are doing 20, 50, $100 million. What are brands that are, still pretty diverse on revenue, still having that exact same problem that you would say that most brands get wrong? If you could come it down to like one problem that most brands get wrong, regardless of size, what do you think that is?
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. Regardless of size, brands, there are quite a few brand founders that I've come across that focus so much based on advice from the last YouTube video that they watched. Right? Like I've seen brands that are like, our CPM is too high. Can you help us with CPM? And I'm like, wait, we're like 3 steps before we can even look into that. And if you're looking, if you're straight up looking at CPM, there's a ton of other metrics you should be looking at that you're just disregarding. I've seen brands that specifically ask how many pieces of creative we generate. Because right, like we're like full force, we'll do the whole thing. And it's an impossible question to answer, and it should be an impossible question to answer for anyone, because it really depends on what the requirement of the brand is. I've managed ad accounts where we're spending $50,000 a day, and all we have is 3 pieces of creative, right? Whereas and
bananas.
I may have, and it works like month over month. It just works. And then I have other brands that spend $3,000 a day, and we're loading in 7, 8, 9 pieces of new ad creative a week. So it really just depends on what stage the business is in. I see brands that are incredibly hyper, especially like at the lower range, where they're getting like single-digit conversions a day for their $200, $300 product. I see brands that are far, far too focused on like intraday ROAS. Right. And the truth of the matter at those levels is that with a higher AOV and not a ton of brand affinity, it's going to be expensive bringing your product to market. That just is what we're not going to be profitable every day. We won't be profitable every month.
Totally. Yeah. So makes a ton of sense.
Let me ask this, Arthur. I was when I was on your website, not wasting meta ad spend. That sounds great. That's something that everybody wants, I think. But man, how do you do this? I mean, I don't want to waste ad dollars. But
it's such a like, some of the things that you see in these ad accounts, you're auditing an e-commerce brand, and and one of the campaigns just isn't optimizing to purchase, like all of those ads, that's all wasted ad spend, right? And I know that the goal for that campaign isn't like the main goal isn't traffic. Like they want conversions, but they're literally optimizing to link clicks. There's other interesting, like very recently I've seen an ad that is just based on the comments clearly hitting an audience that's not meant for that brand. And Meta will keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it because the engagement is so high, but delivering literally $0 in revenue. And that was out of like it's like a $40,000 a week spend total for that account. That ad was $6,000 of that, and it's just crushing. The one thing that I will say is, like, as a founder, before, whether funded or not, before you bring on an agency or any kind of like external partner to help you with ads, know how to look in the ad account and make it a priority to dig in there once or twice a week, like at least, because if you're not looking, you're essentially relying on them to look. And especially if you get like a junior account rep that has to look at 15 other accounts, no one's going to care about it as much as you do.
It's totally fair.
We had Hal Smith of H Street Digital on earlier, and he talked about, when he was a little bit more junior in his career, a nightmare scenario where his ad account basically spent, $100,000 in one day accidentally over the weekend, and he didn't find out about it till Monday. Do you have any of those kind of war stories where you're like, oh gosh, when I was younger, this unfortunately happened, but I learned from it pretty quick?
Yeah, I do. I mean, luckily I haven't had a story where, the account would overspend like crazy like that. For whatever reason. But there is one story where, and it was one of my very first clients when I first started the agency. It was a pretty complicated account. I was underbilling for sure. And this is just as easy to do now as it was before. I deleted the main campaign by mistake.
And
like,
that hurts me.
And like like anyone outside of this industry would just be kind of like, okay, so whatever, just reactive, and it just doesn't work. No, right? Like you guys know, like, so you have to go into like, if you do that, okay. And nowadays, I feel like it's less of an enormous penalty as it was before. But if that happens, there's a filter in Ads Manager where you could see all of the deleted stuff. It's either filtering by that or filtering by anything that has more than 0 impressions. And you can duplicate those and bring them back, right? But the performance is gone, history's gone. Like, it's one of the worst things you can do to an ad account. Luckily, I did it in the very, very beginning.
That's the time. That's the time to do it. It's at the beginning. Oh, wow.
Thanks for bringing that memory back. Yeah,
thanks.
literally getting hot just thinking about it.
We grow from it. We grow.
And we keep going up and to the right. Arthur, okay, we appreciate you making the time and joining us. Last question. We can't let you leave before we ask this one. Are you related to the infamous Batman criminal Alberto Falcone? I just want to bring it up. Just clear the air.
Let's just. I cannot answer that question.
Right outside of Gotham City. Right outside of Gotham City.
I was having drinks with a potential client in the city, and he asked me that same question, and I feel like that answer got me that client.
There we go. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Arthur, man, we appreciate you making the time to join us. Love what you're doing, and we look forward to having you back, man. We appreciate you.
Cool. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Good to be on. Cheers.